Get out of the house. You're the worst. For not even cooking, always dumping the housework on us, and you still call yourself a mom? My wife, if you just quietly stay at home, none of this would have happened. Why doesn't mom just go to a facility? You hardly earned anything from your job. Right. Living was such a nuisance. No way. Henry and Tom's words clearly told me I was no longer needed by them. This, despite everything I've done for the family, all the sacrifices I've made for them. And this is how my family betrays me? It's impossible to continue being a family with them because my heart is crumbling. Loudly, my heart wasn't strong enough to stay a family after all this. So I decided to let go of the family I cherished so much. My name is Mary Simpson, a 41-year-old working mother living with my husband and eldest son. I met Henry, my husband, through a university club. We fell in love, started dating, and as time passed, we realized we couldn't live without each other. And things moved quickly. We have a son, Tom, our eldest. He's a high school student working hard to get into a prestigious private university's medical school. Tom has always been kind, not ignoring those in trouble, wanting to save as many people as possible, saying since he was little, "I want to be a doctor." To support Tom and my dear husband Henry, I've been working harder than ever. Honestly, there are many days when work runs late and I can't do housework, but on such days, Henry, who gets home earlier, or Tom, if he's off school, would help out. I felt reassured by my family every day. I believed everything was going smoothly. The day I realized something was wrong in our family was after a particularly long day at work. A junior at work made a big mistake, so it was a tough day. By the time I finished, it was already past 9 p.m., well beyond dinner time. Exhausted, I came home to find Henry and Tom seemingly in the living room. They usually spend time in their rooms after dinner, so I found it odd and said, "I'm home," as I opened the living room door. That's when Tom frowned and said, "Mom, isn't dinner ready yet? I'm hungry." I was surprised by Tom's words. I was already quite late. Until now, when I was late from work, they would order delivery or make something simple themselves. I believed they would do the same today, but it seemed not. "I'm sorry. Work took longer than expected. I'm tired. Shall we order delivery?" "Delivery? I'm tired of that. I want to eat your cooking, Mom." But to be honest, I was exhausted from working long hours, and a quick look in the fridge showed there wasn't much in there. It was clear I couldn't prepare a satisfying dinner for a growing boy like Tom. "Tom, how about you stop being so demanding?" As I was wondering how to appease Tom, Henry said, while internally grateful for the help, I nodded. "That's right." Henry continued speaking. "You know, Mom hardly does any housework. Relying on her is pointless. Delivery food is thousands of times better than Mom's cooking, so just settle for delivery today." His words hurt me deeply. Indeed, delivery food is delicious, and I understand preferring it over my cooking, but isn't it normal not to voice such things outright? Feeling indirectly criticized for my cooking skills, I felt depressed. Regardless of how I felt, Henry and Tom were browsing their mobile phones, discussing which delivery to choose. It wasn't always like this. Tom used to be a child who cared more about others, but he became sullen when his exam preparations didn't go well. Feeling uncomfortable, I quickly prepared for bed and secluded myself in my room. The family dynamic had been strange since around that time. Since then, I felt that the gears of our family were misaligned. Henry and Tom treated me as if I were not part of the family, often enjoying themselves without me. There were days when I had to work on weekends, and they went on day trips without me. Or even on my rare days off, they spent time together excluding me. The more I tried to make time for my family, the more I felt rejected. It was so painful that I overloaded myself with work, but that backfired, and I collapsed at work. When I woke up, I was in a hospital room. Apparently, I had collapsed from malnutrition and overwork. Indeed, thinking back, I had felt dizzy. My boss had tried to call home, but it went to voicemail. Henry and Tom were off today. Thinking they must be out enjoying themselves, I felt an indescribable sadness. It's true what they say about feeling lonely when you're sick. Lying alone in the hospital room, just staring at the IV drip, was agonizing. If only they'd come, even if late. but no one came. Why? I work hard every day for my family. Even today, I collapsed because I pushed myself too hard for them. So why don't they come? Overwhelmed by these thoughts, I broke down crying on my bed. I felt embarrassed about my own weakness, which only made me cry more. I realized my heart had reached its limit. More than I thought. If only they had shown their faces, even for a moment. If only they had called even once. Those hopes were shattered. After the IV drip, I was told I could go home. I hadn't seen either of them until I got back that day. I again returned home late. My boss said, "You can go home today." I hadn't worked, but the IV took longer than expected. Arriving home at 9 p.m. lately, I've been coming home around this time, so they probably didn't think anything of it, even if I looked unwell. I'm home. Entering the house, I opened the living room door where both of them were waiting. Just like today, I wondered if they were going to demand dinner again. As I worried, Tom spoke. "Mom, you hardly work, so why are you always so late? Are you cheating or something?" His words caught me off guard. Indeed, I was at the hospital today, but usually, I'm just working. It was outrageous to be suspected of cheating. "That's not it. I've been held up at work, that's all." I hurriedly explained, but Tom looked at me skeptically as if he doubted me, making me feel uncomfortable. Why should I be suspected of such things? I'm just trying hard for my family. Frustrated by Tom's unreasonable attitude, Henry finally spoke up. "Enough! The worst person who doesn't even cook, just get out. Always pushing housework on us. Are you even a mom? My wife, if you had just stayed quietly at home, none of this would have happened." I couldn't say anything in response to Henry's words. When we got married, Henry wanted me to quit my job and stay at home, but I wanted to support our home, so I continued working. Ever since then, Henry has never said such things, so I thought he didn't care. But now, he was saying this. Following Henry, Tom also began to criticize me. "Why don't you just go to a facility, Mom? You hardly earn anything from your job." "Right. Living with such a nuisance is impossible." "Impossible? That's not fair." I couldn't raise my head in response to their words, bowing down. Instead, when had they started thinking of me this way? A bad wife? A nuisance? I never intended to become this way. I was just trying to support my family. I felt like a thread holding me together had snapped. I couldn't work hard for my family anymore. That's what I was telling myself. "All right, I'll move to a facility then. I'm sorry for all the trouble I've caused. I'll leave this house, so don't worry." I couldn't put in any more effort, neither in work nor in living with these two as a family. That's what came out of my mouth. Driven by these thoughts, hearing that, both of them smiled. Satisfied. "That's better, Mom. You're getting old, right? You can't earn much anyway, so it's better to spend your time in a facility, like a slow life." Tom's words sounded like concern, but in reality, they were blaming me. A nuisance. Henry followed. "Basically, if you had settled down at home earlier, none of this would have happened. You collapsed, right? That's what happens when you keep pushing yourself in a job, barely doing anything at home, and now failing at work too." Henry also blamed me, but in different words. I couldn't bear their words anymore, as if they were attacking me. "Then I'll get ready to move. I'll take only the essentials today, but I'll have to come back for the rest later, so please forgive me." "Sure, just leave already." Pushed by Henry's words, I returned to my room. I packed only the essentials into a moderately sized travel bag, a few days' clothes, banking cards, daily necessities. The bag was full before I realized it, and it was a bit hard to carry, but I took as much as I could, not knowing how long it would take to sort everything out. "Well then, thank you for everything up to now. Please do your best together from now on," I said, thanking them at the doorway. Then, as it finally realized and my decision was real, Tom panicked. "Well, if you really insist, I can visit you, We're still family." "What family? When your family member collapsed, you were out enjoying yourselves." I wanted to say that, but I held back. That's fine. I'm going to live my life from now on, so don't worry about me. Tom nodded with a guilty look. I see. If he regretted his actions, he shouldn't have done them in the first place. But saying that wouldn't change anything, so I kept quiet. After that, my life became a whirlwind. First, I stayed at a random hotel. The money I had saved up came in handy. While staying at the hotel, I started searching for a facility suitable for my age. At 41, finding the right facility was a challenge, but my decision to enter one was unwavering, so I kept searching diligently. I decided to quit my job to move into a facility. When I explained my situation, my boss was visibly disappointed but didn't try to stop me and accepted my resignation. Without a job, I could fully immerse myself in finding a facility, visiting potential ones, and arranging for necessities. Eventually, I chose to move into a particular facility. It was new, with mostly young staff, designed for people in their 40s and 50s. I didn't expect much service, but the support I received was so substantial that I immediately decided to move in. The staff welcomed me with open arms, and I even felt this place would soon become popular. Finding such a nice place, I felt lucky. Still considering them family, I informed Henry about my new residence. His response was to mockingly say, "Great, you're one of the old folks now." So I kept the conversation to a bare minimum. Later, Tom messaged me, "Congrats on finding a facility. Mom, I'm happier every day without you. Thanks for leaving." His rudeness made me angry, but thinking about my future happiness, I managed to hold back my anger. On the day I moved into the facility, I thanked the hotel staff and went to my new home. Life at the facility was more enjoyable and peaceful than I had expected. The modest recreation activities provided by the staff kept me entertained, and the trees in the large garden soothed my troubled heart. Then one day, something changed. It was the day of a birthday party for one of the residents, a good friend of mine. After the festivities, I returned to my room and checked my mobile phone to find over 100 missed calls from Henry. What could have happened? I came to a conclusion: they must be out of money. Henry, in fact, had a low income, so low he could hardly cover monthly expenses. How did we manage to live then? It was because I paid for everything with my salary. I don't mean to boast, but I had a high income. I earned many qualifications during my student days and easily got a job in a top-tier company. Henry and Tom probably didn't know much about my job, so they treated me as a nuisance and assumed they could live without me. But without my income, and with me taking my bank card, they were left with nothing. I couldn't help but smile at their predicament. However, I had no intention of lending them a helping hand. I even wanted to push them further into misery, so I got permission to go out and went to a mobile phone shop. That day, I canceled my mobile phone service. Of course, being without a phone would be inconvenient, so I got a new one, but I had no intention of giving Henry or Tom the number. Now they couldn't even contact me. I wondered what they would do without money, maybe even struggle to survive this month. Due to being ridiculed by them for so long, I couldn't help but smile when I imagined what actions they might take next. I was so visibly buoyant that a close fellow resident remarked, "You seem in good spirits." Just a few days later, a significant development occurred. One day, while enjoying my free time, a staff member informed me that someone wanted to visit. It was Henry and Tom. I knew immediately that it was my husband and son. Initially, I didn't want to meet them, but then I saw it as a good opportunity and agreed to talk. "Mary, I'm glad you agreed to meet. I wasn't sure you would," Henry said. As soon as I arrived, Henry seemed relieved, as if I had thrown him a lifeline. Tom stood and pulled out a chair across from them. "Mom, please sit. I'm really happy to see you," Tom said. Tom's kind expression was something I hadn't seen before, but I quickly realized it was fake. They were trying to take me back and return to our previous life, especially Tom, who needed money. After all, he was aiming to enter a prestigious private university's medical school, and the tuition would naturally be considerable. Of course, I had worked hard anticipating this, and if they had continued to treat me as a family member, I could have paid for Tom's tuition. Now they seemed to have realized what they had trampled upon and were panicking. "This is a nice place. Knowing you're happy here makes me feel relieved. But we've missed you, Mom. We didn't realize how important you were until you left. Now we need you, so please come back. I want to spend time with you again, Henry pleaded. The old me would have believed their words and eagerly agreed to return to our previous life. But now I could see right through the hidden motives behind their words. They just wanted to bring me back to make me work again, and to take control of the savings I had accumulated from my work. All of this was transparent to me. Stop joking. Why don't you just admit you want my money? Without it, you can't even sustain your lifestyle, right? And Tom's tuition is out of reach. Without me, you can't survive. Do you even know how much the mortgage on the house is? $1.8K. I paid that alone every month. I worked hard because you were important to me, and what happened? You drove me out, calling me a nuisance. Do you really think I'm naive enough to go back to being a family after all this? I told them clearly and decisively that continuing as a family was impossible. My rapid-fire words left Henry and Tom dumbfounded. That's understandable. Until now, no matter how much they complained, I had remained silent, fearful of causing a fight or stirring up trouble within the family. I was silent because I feared that very thing, but I'm different now. I've decided to speak up about what's wrong, to be honest about my feelings, and not to lie to myself. That's why I was able to speak my mind so clearly. I then slammed the divorce papers I had picked up when I canceled my phone onto the table. Here are the divorce papers. Take them and sign them, I said. At my words, Henry turned pale. What? Are you serious? If you do this, we won't be a family anymore, he said. Revoked by Henry, Tom also confronted me. I don't want you to leave, Mom. We're a family. Let's stay together. Let's stick together, the three of us, he said. Their desperation made me inadvertently smile. The two who had cornered me were now bowing their heads, begging me. Their current plight amused me, but my decision was unchanged. No matter what they said, I had decided to divorce and sever the family ties. I had no intention of going back to them. I'm sorry, but I'm serious. If you resist, I'll hire a lawyer, so be prepared for that. Goodbye, I said. With that, I left the room. The last thing I saw was Henry staring dejectedly at the divorce papers, and Tom, who could do nothing but look down. Thus, I successfully cut ties with my family. Of course, whether everything was truly over, I couldn't be sure. There might be resistance, but this was a turning point for me. For a long time, I had worked hard for my family to be recognized, to give my all. But today, I was left behind, so I decided to live for myself. They were no longer needed. As expected, Henry did not submit the divorce papers willingly. I sent them several times by mail, but none were submitted, likely thrown away. So I hired a lawyer and decided to go through a divorce trial. Henry's side also prepared a lawyer, but due to his low income, he couldn't afford a decent one and was completely outmatched by my lawyer. I also filed for compensation in the divorce trial. They begged, crying, "That's impossible." Indeed, upon investigation, it was clear they had no means to pay the compensation from the divorce trial, but I couldn't bring myself to forgive them and decided they should pay the amount, even if it meant taking on debt. As expected, Henry ended up borrowing money to pay the divorce compensation. Of course, their lives became difficult, and Tom had to give up his dream of attending the prestigious private medical school and started working after high school. They are now living a hellish life. Just hearing about their situation was satisfying for me. As for me, I'm leading a leisurely life at the facility. I haven't even shared this incident with my close fellow residents. It was too embarrassing to share such details openly. I probably won't meet the heartless Henry and Tom again. From now on, I'll live my life. No one can interfere with that. I'm sure there are many happy moments waiting for me in the future. Thinking about what lies ahead makes me incredibly excited about life and reaffirms that it's worth